evening, everybody. My name is Paul Rich. I was a student at Greenfield High School, graduated from Greenfield High School, went on to graduate from Wyndham College with a major in economics and a minor in American government. I furthered my education by taking a course at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, Israel, as well as involved in a teacher exchange in Trollhättan, Sweden. I first got interested in photography when I was in Vietnam. And this is the camera. It's a Minolta, and it's miniaturized. And it was made in Japan, and it didn't have to deal with aperture or zoom lenses or anything. You just look through the viewfinder and shoot the shot. So it was easy. I wasn't, the technology didn't inhibit me from taking the photographs I wanted to take. I started this book about a year and a half ago. It didn't help because of the pandemic. And Taylor Publishing out of Dallas, Texas, actually published the book. The main ingredient of the book is being a self-portrait photographer. That's what my strength is. And everybody has a biography. I photograph people of all ages, all wages. And my main venues were the Rusty Nail, which was a barn converted into a nightclub. It was located in Route 47 in Sunderland, Mass. It was right near the University of Massachusetts. And they had all these iconic figures before they became iconic. So I started off with the knowledge that I had an instinctual visual awareness. Then I started to do street people in Greenfield, went all the way to San Francisco. But I think that it went for Jim Sullivan and Paul Savine, who had access to different venues because they were rock and roll bus drivers. Let's go to the musicians and start off with the blues singers. The big three: Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, and B.B. King. They're all in the Hall of Fame, probably Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I visited a couple years ago, as well as they're probably in the Blues Hall of Fame. The first one is Muddy Waters. This was a shot that I took right from the beginning of the stage, right in front of the beginning of the stage. The next one, John Lee Hooker. He's also a heavyweight. And the next one, B.B. King. And the next one, Sugar Ray Leonard. Well, this is the first opportunity my father had to actually see me do photography. It was at the North Palm Beach PGA Championship Golf Course. He was training for the Thomas Hearns fight. He was known as the Hitman from Detroit. So I figured it's a good time to bring in some memorabilia from my boxing collection. Let's start with Muhammad Ali's boxing shorts. This was a gift. And I met Muhammad Ali at UMass. I skipped school a little bit early to go down to UMass. And he was amazing. They wouldn't let him box because they took away his license because he was against the Vietnam War. So from there, I started to collect a couple other items from Bob's Sporting Goods store. Actually, he majored in baseball cards. So let me present to you. This is a shot that the Thriller in Manila, I believe, and it was signed by both Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. all the memorabilia that I have has been certified, provenanced. So let's go to the musicians. Iconic folk singer Odetta and still legendary singer Patti LaBelle. The next one consists of a multitude of singers, starting with Alison Krauss, Billy Idol, and the Fix. Then we proceed to George Thorogood and Midnight Oil. George Thorogood's main contributions are his songs Battered to Bone, I Drink Alone. The other group is the Midnight Oil. What was interesting about them was that they were all PhDs. They were from Australia. I think they made one or two albums, and then they retired. The next one is Steppenwolf, whose really name is John Leonard, Born to Be Wild. He had several hits. He's also in the Hall of Fame. Let's proceed to the next shot, which is the political realm of my book, which includes, first of all, Angela Davis. She was the feminine face of the Black Panther movement, and she's surely an iconic figure. She'll be in the history books. Also would be in the history books, if they're written properly, is Shirley Chisholm, who was the first woman of African American descent who actually ran for Congress and won. And I do believe she ran for president and was certified in all 50 states. So she's a historical figure, as well as Angela Davis. We're going to go to Jane Fonda. A lot of people are still angry at Jane Fonda for her participation against the war in Vietnam. I thought she was a courageous figure. The iconic shot is with her on a North Vietnamese NVA tank. She's proceeded to be a movie star. She had a fitness program, which was widely watched. She's still alive and still taking up progressive causes. The next one is the most racist person in the 1974, I believe, busing crisis in Boston, Massachusetts. I wish I would have photographed Tip O'Neill instead, but Dapper was the one was available. As we proceed, this is the bench people. I was taking a course at GCC, and my assignment was to photograph anything I wanted to. And I decided to sit on the benches near Barrett and Baker's and photograph people that I thought were interested looking. And they almost seemed they came from a different age. The first one, I'd like to show you, the publishing company Over Inked. But this is Tony. Tony was like a living legend. He was a safety guard, and everybody knew him as a person of a wonderful personality. The thing I like about this photograph is the benches, is the background. If you look closely, you'll discover that people who are in the background, in the crosswalks, are walking in two different directions. So in any photograph, the foreground and the background are eminently important. These are some of the other ones that I photographed for the assignment at GCC. Then we'll proceed to this man here. What's interesting about some of these photographs, the sun was an autumn sun. The complexion was noticeable, that they had some type of color in their faces. Now we go to the Franklin County Fair. I used to get up early in the morning, which I didn't really like, but I wanted to watch the livestock auctions and prizes, the 4-H club members. They're mostly kids, but they took very much pride in grooming their animals. But the ones I was most interested in were the hucksters. They were very difficult to photograph because they didn't want their photograph being taken. Maybe the IRS or whatever purposes. But I talked to them, which I always do before bringing my camera up to photograph anybody. because they had confidence that I was gonna, distribute it in an unmanly manner. These are people that go around America and go from carnival to carnival. Here's some more that I think illustrate that these people are a different class by themselves. The final photographs illustrate that they are characters. And the little girl that won the teddy bear, she was ecstatic. She wanted me to photograph her. Her father certainly did. Now, when it comes to street people, they are interesting because their faces illustrate their history to a degree. Some have good luck, some have bad luck, and some have no luck. So first of all, the woman here called a traveler, she lived right near the Green River in a trailer. And I went into her trailer and she said, I've never left this trailer, but I've been around the world. She had subscribed to National Geographic for 32 years. So in a way, she traveled the world, not physically, but through the medium of books. The other one, this man here was very reluctant to be photographed. He thought I had an alternative motive, but I didn't. And he reluctantly let me photograph him. So this is in Greenfield, Massachusetts. This is in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Now, Mr. Cynical, he's one tough cookie. He wanted no way to be photographed. I just said, let me take one shot. And this is the shot I took. And the other person was with the beard. I found him in Beacon Hill. It was an unfortunate story. He was looking for a lost friend, and he discovered his friend had died. So he was all alone. He was most concerned about getting a beer at the Victoria when they opened. I says, let me take your photograph and I'll take you down to the Victoria bar. And we made an agreement, and this is the results. Now, these were two dear friends of mine, Russ and Geraldine Sully. Russ took part in co-producing 2 films that I made for GCTV. Actually, the first 2 films ever recorded for GCTV. One was called Franklin County, USA. The other one was called The Art of Dowsing, which I knew nothing about, but Russ did. Now, Geraldine, after World War II, she was a ballerina dancer. And she came to America, and she was a prominent dancer. Now, born again pagan, I had to run out of the car in West Palm Beach to get him. I saw his T-shirt, got out of the car, and I said, may I take your photograph, like I usually do? And he acquiesced, and so I took the photograph of him. The next guy, the 2 blues brothers, as I call them, they were from Hampton Beach. I just saw them and wanted to photograph them. There's not much of a storyline behind them. This one here would concentrate on the polo shot. That's perhaps one of my best photographs. It sold for auction 35 years ago for $100. So polo is a rich person's sport. I happened to be at the right time in the right place, but they needed a photographer, so I learned the game of polo. And I became the Palm Beach polo photographer. Then I became the Palm Beach rugby photographer, which I knew nothing about that sport. But my friend from England participated, and so I brought my camera along. These 2 are self-explanatory, I guess. I like kids, and I try to make them comfortable in front of the camera. And the clown here was at the Boynton Beach Gala when my father was a saxophone player, and we used to go there every year. And I saw this clown, and I later discovered that she was on national television in some type of advertisement. It was a quick shot. Now, this woman here, Kim Tier, was perhaps the best model I ever photographed. Before I met her, she was a student at GCC. Before I met her, my long-term friend, Mary Lee Kane, on this page is currently a teacher. She has been one for 32 years. She was featured in last week's Recorder, teaching young kids, pre-kindergarten kids, how to grow plants and feed themselves. And the shoes, for some reason, a lot of females are attracted to that photograph. The other one on the bottom, she was a dealer in Las Vegas. She came home. She was only home for a little while, and I asked if I could photograph her. She relented, and obviously these women are part of my portfolio. Now we go to the powwow at Charlemont. I've always been of the persuasion that the Native Americans had the answer about the higher source, that if you take care of Mother Nature will take care of you. Currently, we know about climate control problems, and they were way ahead of us. And their philosophy is, you know, it's a religious definition of how mankind should live. What's interesting about this portfolio is that it started to rain. I only had like 5 minutes, and I lined them up one after another. And they were very gracious to let me photograph them. This is an iconic photograph of Beacon Hill District in Boston. And this photograph, where you see the Capitol Dome, will never be photographed again because soon after they tore down the building. So this is a shot that is can't be replicated. Now, talking about nature, when you photograph nature, the best times are sunset and sunrise. I was never too keen on getting up on sunrise, but even though I'm a portrait photographer, I do have an eye for nature. I'm talking about eyes. You can't teach people that have a good eye. It's almost instinctual. I lay these photographs as part of my portfolio, but I was more interested in people than nature. And the last photograph I'm going to show you is something that was just down the road. I don't know, it caught my eye. I've never seen roots that big. And like I say, you know, sometimes you capture the moment and sometimes you don't. But idealism is that you capture the moment. The last one, which really doesn't belong in the back of the book, should be with musicians, is Leon Russell, who happened to play the Beatles. It's a very good shot, but it doesn't belong in the back of the book. Talking about the back of the book, it says, all I can do is be me, whoever that is. And I'm still trying to figure out who me is. Now, there's a person I want to introduce you to, and that is Lottie Jacoby. She photographed Einstein both in Germany and in Princeton University. One day, one fine day, as a matter of fact, I went to New Hampshire to try to locate her, and I finally found her in this small town. And I brought up some of my photographs. I was young and ambitious and thought I was important. It could be important. And this is a photograph I took of her. So she was instrumental in giving me the initiative to keep on keeping on, to photograph and photograph and shoot and shoot. And there's a lot of misses, but there was a lot of good shots. And she gave me the emphasis to shoot more and more, which I did. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the photographers that influenced me. And the first one was Annie Leibovitz, who photographed iconic figures for the Rolling Stone. But Margaret Burke White has also influenced me because She was the first female photographer to be allowed to photograph World War II. And Imogene Cunningham is the last one that I bought a book and influenced me. I have a few things that I'd like to show you that illustrates that I had the access, I had the right venue, and even though I wasn't a well-known photographer, I proceeded to proceed ahead. And these are some of the press passes and photo passes and backstage passes that I was given in order to do the photography, and my friends provided them for me. So I have a vast collection. These are just a few of people I photographed. So now it validates that I did have a very interesting career as a photographer. Unfortunately, when digital cameras arrived, it was the end of my career. And I wanted to leave a legacy behind, and that's the summation of my career is in the book that I had recently published. Now, there's something that I want to give you that about my exhibitions. At first, I had 3 photographs representing my trip, I think, to England and Sweden. They all won blue ribbons at the Franklin County Fair. And then I had an exhibit at the Greenfield Historical Society, actually the second show. It still is the most witness show, according to the director. There was more people that turned out than any other show. And at last, my Brush with Fame exhibit was at the Pushkin Gallery. And she said that was the best attended show she ever had. I know there was 82 people that showed up in the opening. But I want to leave you with some wisdom by George Bernard Shaw. In the wise words of George Bernard Shaw, there's a quote that I wrote down that I think is befitting. Life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And the book speaks for itself. I was a big Red Sox fan and still am. And my father was even a bigger Red Sox fan because he was raised in Boston. He used to tell me stories how he saw Babe Ruth play before he was traded to the Yankees. And this is a hat I bought from Bob's Sporting Good store, which was located right near the Garden Theater at the time.